you can start recording. Meeting is called to order. As usual, we'll start with a little prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day. We thank you, dear Lord, for the opportunity to meet in this fashion one more time. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the speaker that we have for tonight. Heavenly Father, bless whatever she has to say, and that we will all learn something from this presentation. Bless us all, bless our friends, bless our family, bless those who are about to sign on at a later time. And Heavenly Father, whatever we do here, we ask that you would bless us. We know that you're with us because your word says wherever 2 or 3 are gathered together, you're in the midst. Help us, dear Lord, that whatever we do tonight will be done decently and in order. And we ask your blessing on all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy afternoon to be with the Libraries and Cultural Affairs Committee as we celebrate Women's History Month. Well, every month has so much to celebrate. And for the month of March, it is no different. March, the main focus is Women's History Month. We also have March Madness, which is a basketball ritual. We have Ash Wednesday, which just passed, which is the beginning of Lent. We have Daytime Savings Time, which is, I think it's this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And then we also have the Ides of March, which I think is March 15th. And those who remember Shakespeare readings, remember Brutus and Caesar. When they would tell you, beware the Ides of March, I think it's usually like a bad omen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ides of March.
Because the Ides of March, yes, it's a warning to Caesar when the day when he was assassinated. And then we have St. Patrick's Day. Then most of us are looking forward to the first day of spring, March 21st. Yay, because after spring comes summer. We know that winter is gone for a while. Okay. So it's Women's History Month. Here I'll speak about the introduction of Women's History Month. Talk about the program, how it started, when it started. So Women's History Month is an annual declared month that highlights the contributions of women to events in history and contemporary society. In the United States, Women's History Month traces its beginnings back to the first International Women's Day in 1911. But the actual celebration of Women's History Month grew out of a week-long celebration of women's contributions to culture, history, and society, organized by the school district. Everyone muted, everyone should be muted. Organized by the school district of Sonoma, California in 1978. Presentations were given at many schools. Hundreds of students participated in a Real Woman essay contest, and the parade was held in downtown.
We cannot hear you.
He's muted. Can you unmute yourself?
I said all of this and no one told me you could not hear me.
No. We just heard the last 30 seconds of it because I muted everyone but
Oh,
okay,
okay, I'm sorry.
that's fine. Everyone, just ma'am, give Ms. The chair the mic, please. Everyone, everyone, mute yourselves except the chair, please.
So did you hear anything? I'm sorry. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter issued the presidential proclamation declaring the week of March 8th as National Women's History Week. The United States Congress followed suit the next year, passing a resolution establishing a national celebration. 6 years later, the National Women's History Project successfully petitioned Congress to expand the event to the entire month of March. So many countries around the world celebrate International Women's Day with demonstrations, educational initiatives, and customs such as presenting women with gifts and flowers. The theme for this year, 2022, is Women Providing Healing, Promoting Hope. This theme is both a tribute to the ceaseless work of caregivers and frontline workers during this ongoing pandemic, and also a recognition of the thousands of ways that women of all cultures have provided both healing and hope throughout history. Women and money, they're the two strongest things in the world. There are things you do for a woman you wouldn't do for anything else. Same with money. And this is a saying from Satchel Paige, who was an American basketball player. Happy Women's History Month, ladies. We honor you for your strength, your dedication, your wisdom, loyalty, your honesty, and your resilience. Happy Women's History Month. Miss Sadie. Miss Sadie will continue with this definition of Women's History Month.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm really pleased to see you all here. And Alfredo, I give you kudos. I see who else is here? I think I did see someone, another male, but he disappeared, so we'll get him later. Okay, so it's a well-known fact that women are the backbone of a society and have a long documented history of accomplishments, as we know. Their achievements, however, are still not as well known as those of men. And so throughout history, the central role of women in society has ensured the stability, progress, and long-term development of nations. And even after much political activism, we still have yet to see equality, in my opinion. So we are going to continue the struggle. And something that I'm thinking of, the Equal Rights Amendment, which that was about a woman by the name of Alice Paul in 1923. Congress, I guess she has initiated the movement, this talk of women's appreciation. And I think it was in 1970 that the amendment was approved. But I think still there's some ratification that is done to be done from some states. So the fight continues. So as the saying goes, we still must agitate, agitate, agitate. So we continue. Okay. That's my little bit for now. A little later, I'll come on again. So, Mr. Joan?
Sadie, thank you very much. Now, I will say a few words about our guest speaker. Her bio, you can imagine, is lengthy with all the accomplishments that she has. We cannot go into that. We'll be here all night. So I'll just read a few lines to let you know who she is. Dr. Marcia V. Keyes became the 6th and the 2nd longest serving president of York College. York College is, the longest serving president of York College on February 14, 2005, until her retirement from that position on August 31st, 2019. Dr. Keyes' leadership of York College was the latest chapter in a distinguished career that spans 5 CUNY colleges and in the central offices. She started her CUNY career as an English professor 50 years ago before transitioning to administration. And it goes on and on. She will tell you more about her accomplishments as she makes her presentation tonight on women and finances. Dr. Keyes, you now have the floor for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Claude, and thank you very much, everyone, for the invitation to join your Women's History Month celebration of the Bronx CB12. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great, good. Thank you so much.
I'm going to make
Excellent.
a presenter, Ms. Keys, for you good for your presentation.
Okay, so now do I have, let's see if I can bring up my presentation. So I think it's there. Can you see the screen? If you can see the screen, just say yes for me, please.
Not yet. Mhm.
Not yet? Okay, well then let's see.
Share the screen.
Okay, let's see. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Great, good, good, good. Okay. Thank you so much. So once again, I want to thank Joan for inviting me to the Community Board 12 celebration of Women's History Month. And I also want to thank her for giving me the latitude to speak about anything I wanted to speak about. And so I wanted to focus on money, quite frankly, and some things I've learned over my very long life about taking care of that aspect of our lives, which sometimes we just don't like to talk about. I also want to give a special shout out to Miss Sadie Campbell, who is a longtime friend of mine, for everything she does in the community, with Community Board 12, but also as leader of the Jamaica Progressive League. And I want to thank the Community Board for your work, quite frankly. And many, many, many years ago, back in the 70s and 80s, I was relatively active because I lived in the Wakefield section of the Bronx. I still own a home there, and so I keep active on some levels. But I was quite a member of CB12, and we had a Wakefield Civic Association, of which I was a founding member. So I have a little bit of roots, if you will, in that community. So it's Women's History Month, and my topic applies to everybody, quite frankly, women, men, children, old, young, wherever you happen to be. But as I want to give honor to some of the women who have influenced me, I thought I would introduce to you 2 of my favorite poets, Gwendolyn Brooks, Pulitzer Prize winner from Chicago, a woman who was quite humble in her presence, but stalwart in what she did. She was the first African-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for poetry for a collection called In the Mecca. And I just want to read a couple of lines from her in her honor to start us off. And I'll close with another of my favorite poetesses at the end. And this particular poem is called The Second Sermon on the Warplane. It's one that she wrote towards the latter part of her career. She had started out very much as a very introverted, if you might say, kind of individual. And her poetry was the way she expressed herself. A lot of her poetry centered on the life of Chicago, women, men, children, essentially in Bronzeville. This is where she lived, the sort of the Black section of Chicago. They were very introspective, but as time went on, and as the Black arts movement came along, she became much more expressive and somewhat more controversial, in fact, as the Black arts movement came along. And this particular poem that I'm going to read, which is a little long, but in tribute to her, I'll read the whole thing, sort of expresses some of that. And if you're interested in knowing more about Gwendolyn Brooks, I would like to let you know that right now, between starting back in January and going into sometime in May, there is an exhibit. I haven't seen it yet, but I plan to go as soon as the weather changes. There is an exhibit of her work at the Morgan Stanley Museum in Manhattan. So if you have an interest at all in knowing more about Gwendolyn Brooks, I invite you to go there and see the exhibit. So this poem is called The Second Sermon on the Warplane. This is the urgency: live and have your blooming in the noise of the whirlwind. Salvage in the spin, endorse the splendor spatches, stylize the flawed utility, proper my line or failing light, but know the whirlwind is your commonwealth. Not the easy man who rides above them all, not the jumbo brigand, not the pet bird of poets, the sweetest sonnet shall straddle the whirlwind, nevertheless live. All about are the cold places, all about are the pushmen in jeopardy, theft, all about are the stormers and scramblers, but what must our season be which starts from fair? Live and go out, define and medicate the whirlwind. The time cracks into furious flower, lifts its face all unashamed, and sways in wicked grace. Whose half-black hands assemble oranges is tom-tom-hearted, goes in bearing oranges in boom. And there are bells for orphans and red and shriek and sheen. A garbage man is dignified as any diplomat. Big Bess's feet hurt like nobody's business, but she stands bigly under the unruly scrutiny, stands in the wildweed. In the wildweed, she is a citizen and is a moment of highest quality, admirable. It is lonesome, yes, for we are the last of the loud. Nonetheless, live. Conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. Gwendolyn Brooks, I recommend her to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for the opportunity to talk with you. And you heard a little bit about my biography. And yes, I did live in Wakefield for about 15, 16, 17 years from 1975. Well, actually, this was more like 20, 1975 to 1994. So I know the area well. And yes, I'm known as Dr. Keys, Professor Keys, President Keys, Marcia Keys, Aunt Marcia. No, I've not ever been a Mrs. Keys, however. That is my mother, Eileen, who lived a long and very productive life, lives until 98. And she passed away some years ago I was away in Ireland on a vacation, but my sister and family kept her alive so I could come home and say goodbye. But I learned some of my tight-fistedness from her because she was pretty tight-fisted. She knew how to count. She was always counting, not just her money, by the way, but other things as well. And she taught us some of those lessons. This is just a little snapshot of my mom when she was younger and my dad. I also learned a little bit from him as well, growing up. And he was a businessman, sort of self-made type of guy, coming from the country, Guys Hill, coming into town, going out on a merchant marine, deciding he was going to be somebody, as it were, teaching himself certain kind of skills. And as early as 1955, if you can see that caricature there, he opened in a furniture store in Kingston, Jamaica, on Church Street. It later migrated to Orange Street, and that's where he carried on his business. My parents, obviously, and the broad extended family sort of instilled in us a lot of good values. Certainly education was one. My father had the entrepreneurial spirit. I have to say I didn't pick that up at all. I never wanted to run my own business. I don't know why. I don't feel as if that's something I can do. But he certainly, between the two of them, instilled in us a sense of commitment to family, a commitment to country, wherever it happens to be, whether it's Jamaica or elsewhere, a commitment to the society, and a commitment to the broader society in general. And so you'll always find me trying to make something better for the next generation, or just for the people who are even of my generation. One of the things that I certainly learned from my father is that certain kinds of investments were very important. A home was very, very important. And one of the things I will remember very distinctly is that back in 1975, when myself and my sister decided that we weren't going to pay rent anymore, we were going to try to find a home. And we did find one, and he managed to find about $1,200. That's $1,200 of US dollars from Jamaica. And he sent that up to us so we would have that as part of our down payment for the first house that we bought. And it was wonderful because he was able to come up to New York, spend time with us, enjoy the backyard, help us set up our first barbecue grill, as it were, and so on and so forth. So it starts there. But one of the things that I need you to know about me too is that, and I really learned this from both parents, is that it's good to have what you can have for yourself and your family, but you must also share it. And so whether it's that you're sharing it beyond your immediate family, you're sharing it with your church family, you're sharing it with charitable donations that have been important to you. For instance, the Schaumburg Library is very important to me because of the fact that when I was studying to get my doctorate, I went to Teachers College, Columbia, but a lot of the materials that I needed happened to be at the Schaumburg. It wasn't the fancy Schaumburg Library that is there now. Right across, it's always been right across from Harlem Hospital, but it was just a little rinky-dink old New York City, quote unquote, library. Since that time, it has been reconstructed, but it had a wealth and continues to have a wealth of information. And my dissertation topic was on two African-American women, Gwendolyn Brooks, the person I spoke about just now, and Margaret Walker. And I spent months and months doing research there. And so one of my commitments in my life is that I give back to the Schaumburg. Every year, I make a significant contribution to the Schaumburg Library, and that is something that I highly value. Those are some of the values that I have learned from family. So as I mentioned, I've never been Mrs. Keys, but I've had a very active, I'll talk a little bit first about the other part of my biography. I have a lot of sisters and brothers. We like to travel together. We have to plan these trips and we have to plan to save towards them. And so we work at that as a group. And my family, my sisters, my brothers, their children, and we don't have any, we have one grand niece. No, not one one great grand. I'm losing track of the generations, but we try to come together and pool our funding and do these kinds of events. As you've heard, I've had a very long career. I started out as an English teacher. That was my main goal. When I first left Jamaica to go to Winnipeg, Canada, I went to school at the University of Manitoba. My whole intention was to go back to Jamaica to be a wonderful English teacher like the English teachers that I had in my life. There was an English teacher named Miss Harrison and another one named Miss Gale, and they were just amazing role models for me. But I got sort of sidetracked along the way. I came to New York, where my mother was living and my sister had gone to Howard, and here I am. I was fortunate coming up in the late 60s and early 70s, even though as an immigrant, if you will, I was not actively engaged in the civil rights movement. But when I came to New York, I was very much the beneficiary of that movement. Like many people of my generation, who found ourselves in places like New York, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. in those early days of the 70s, we were the beneficiaries of the civil rights movement and the vast opening up of opportunities for Black people that swept in the social, educational, economic, and political changes of that decade. Suffice it to say that many of us who found ourselves in these big cities found doors open to us that were heretofore closed. And fortunately, because some of us had the educational skills, we were able to walk into those doors that were open by the people who have become martyrs, whose names we call Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, the NAACP. Those people opened those doors so people like me who left Jamaica, went to Winnipeg, came to the United States with the intention of going back to Jamaica, those doors opened up. And I found myself as early as 1971 being able to become, quote unquote, a college professor. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect to be doing that. Yes, an English teacher, absolutely, but a college professor, not in my wildest dreams. And so it was that a young woman whose only ambition on leaving Jamaica was to qualify to be a high school teacher of English had those doors wide open. I started in 1971 as a professor of English at Queensborough Community College. And after all these years and many, many positions, 9 different positions in so many different colleges. I landed as the president of York College on February 14th, 2005. And I chose that day, February 14th, because York had been having some very difficult times. And I said, you know what? I think this college needs some love. And symbolically, I'm going to start on that day. And so, ladies and gentlemen, CB12, from Kingston, Jamaica to Jamaica, Queens. That's my story. So now let's turn to my 10-step, my 10-step actions for you and to ponder and to share, quite frankly, with your family. So, you know, and I've come to this over time. You know, this is not something that, this is something that has sort of evolved over time. So Marcia's 10 steps towards financial health and wellness. And, you know, don't tell me you're too old. Don't tell me you don't have any money. Don't tell me any of those excuses. It's never too late to improve your health. Just like we work on our physical health, you know, we go to the doctor, we have our checkups, we take our vitamins, we try to eat as well as we can, we get our exercise, you know, we do our little walks, or we do our 10 steps or 5,000 steps, 4,000 steps every other day. At any moment, you can improve your health, and at any moment, you can improve your financial wellness. So let's see what we can do to advance that. My first thing that I advise everyone, and you know, some people, they don't really want to hear it. I have in my family, some of my family members, they are anxious. They say, oh, Marcia, what should we be doing here? And then others will say, oh, no, Marcia, I don't think I want your advice. Or they may ask for the advice and then they just decide not to follow it. But they know me well enough. And of course, it's my family. So I sometimes push my way in and I say, well, how are things, you know? And they may say, well, I really need some help on XYZ. So item number 1, know what you're spending. Of course, you have to also know your income. So item number 1, do an inventory of your income and expenses. Include every single expense, your food, your transportation, your mortgage, your rent, your phones, your credit cards, your car payments, your gifts, obviously, your entertainment. And also include your income, your salary, your social security, if you get any gifts, if you have a pension, if you have rental income, if you have part-time gigs. Review this after you've kept it for a month, maybe even 2 months, just to get a good track of it. Review them on that monthly basis or the second, you know, bi-monthly. See where we are. See if things sort of balance. See where you're spending. See where you might be spending more than you even thought you were spending. But put it down on paper. This is something I learned from my mother. She put everything down on paper. I mean, she was almost obsessive about it, but she kept track of what she had coming in and what she had going out. So that's the first step. Step number 2. This is something that sometimes I find that we as women don't necessarily maximize. And as I said, you know, I am single. I've not had a husband to do some of this. Maybe that's one of the reasons I've done it, but I don't think so, because some of my friends, with whom I call my posse, which you'll hear about later, some of them, you know, have had husbands in their lives, and yet they will still talk with me and other women about their sort of financial situation and maybe how to improve it. So item 1, get an inventory. Know what it is. Put it down in black and white. Number 2, try to see what we can do in terms of taxes. I know one of the things that people used to say, oh, I hate paying taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes. Taxes are really eating out my income. And I say, yes, this is true. But one of my sayings in the old days, of course, I know that taxes are not fair at all. We know that. But I've always said, well, if I've got to pay the taxes, I've got to pay the taxes. If I earn more, then I may have to pay more. However, there are ways to try to maximize your tax deductions or quote unquote minimize your taxes. Now, this is not everybody's situation is different. So I would not dare to give you advice on your tax deductions necessarily or your tax situation, but that's something, of course, your accountant can do. You can also read up on it. But there are some very basic things that sometimes we overlook, quite frankly. And one of the things I'm trying by sharing this, and you're sharing it with your peers or sharing it with your children or sharing it with your grandchildren or the younger people in your generation, is to sort of get them into the habit of these things early. So in terms of maximizing tax deductions, and of course, I have a feeling I'm preaching to the choir here, but if you take away only one little thing out of this, maybe it will have been good. But maximize your tax deduction. Very often, some people are self-employed and they don't put away in an IRA, which is a tax deductible item. Some of us are employed by the city or other employees. We don't take advantage of the 401 or 403. We say, okay, Social Security is going to do that, and that's good. And Social Security will be there. Trust me, I know we're going to have Social Security. It's not going to disappear. But if you want to supplement it, these are ways to do it and to have a tax deduction. Because when you, in fact, automatically deduct from your paycheck, let's say, it reduces your taxable income. Or, of course, if you're self-employed and you put away money in an IRA, that amount of money is a deductible on your taxes. You pay it at the end, of course, when you retire, when you take it out. But at this point, it is a deduction. Charities are also, of course, an important deduction. Some of us belong to churches, some belong to other organizations, mosques, etc. Gifts that you give to your church, you usually get a statement at the end of the year. And of course, that's a charitable donation. Okay, dependents. Well, most of us live in families. Many of us are married with children. That's a dependent. Or for that matter, if you have a mother who lived with you, she was my dependent in her later years. So she was, in effect, a tax deduction for me. We lived together for about the last 15 or so years. Prior to that, she had lived independently. Home expenses, if you're fortunate enough to own a home or to be planning to purchase a home, your mortgage interest is tax deductible, as of course are your taxes up to a certain amount. And as I mentioned before, if you give to your church and other charities, it is really very, very important that you keep a record of that for tax reasons. One of the things that I like to say about the business of participating in sort of an employer tax deferred plan is that if you start to do it early, in my life, I have hired a lot of people, and sometimes I hire some younger people. And when they come on board, I usually give them a little advice. I say, you're going to be hired full time. You're going to be getting some automatic increases because it's a union shop and you're going to get automatic increases. I know you're not thinking at all about retirement at this time, and I don't even want you to think about retirement, but think about putting away a certain amount, maybe 5%, a small part of your salary, as a savings in the tax deferred. I said, if you do it and if you feel as if you can't live on what you have, then you can adjust it. But if you do it and it's automatic and you get a raise next year and you're still only putting away 5% and you find that you can do more, then you can increase it. But start the habit. And the habit of putting away in a tax deferred savings account, it is for retirement, but many of you know that that money can be accessed for certain reasons without penalty. So that, for instance, if you wanted to buy a home and you needed to take that money out, or if you had an illness and you needed to take that money out, you can borrow from yourself, is what that is. Or if, for instance, you may have a child going to college and you want to borrow from it, you're borrowing from yourself and then you're paying yourself back. So that tax deferred issue is a really important one. So maximize your tax deductions. Item 3, develop good saving habits. Now, you know, which of us in this room love to save? Tell me, is there anybody? Let me see a show of hands or a thumbs up if you love to save. If you're a good saver, give me a thumbs up. Anybody? I'm not seeing it. Okay, people are giggling because they're saying, who, me save? No, I spend. Well, Americans are not great savers, although the pandemic has been very good for savings, is what they say, because we can't go anywhere. We can't take trips. We can't go to the restaurants. We can't go to theater. We can't do anything. Of course, we've been spending it on our homes, right? That's why we have the supply chain problem. But generally speaking, in the United States of America, we're not big savers. They say the Japanese are the best savers in the world. But you don't have to be a big saver. You don't have to stinge on everything, but you should develop, and this is what I try to encourage my students when I have a chance to mentor them, or any younger people in my family or my godchildren. I say, develop the savings habit, just develop it. It's just like doing your exercise or eating well or, flossing your teeth or whatever it is. It's a habit and you have to practice it. If you don't practice it, it just will go away. So item number 3 then, develop good savings habits. And one of the ways that you can do that is with an automatic savings. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure some of you remember when we used to have the Christmas savings funds at the savings bank and you would put away a little money into those Christmas savings funds. And in those days, you would actually get good interest, right? Not anymore. Then you're getting 0.05 on your interest now if you're getting that. Those days meant 3% interest, 4% interest if you had a nice savings bank. I remember I used to have those. Anyway, now with electronic everything, it's very easy if you decide on it to make it a habit. Let them take it automatically out of whatever it is you're getting, whether it's your Social Security that you're taking it from, or whether it's your income. If you have a paycheck that comes to you electronically, if you're not and you're self-employed, then you have to develop that habit yourself, okay? And what you can do in that case is you can, if you have a checking account, which you probably do, you can say every month automatically on X date, I'm going to take $100. I'm going to authorize that my bank takes $100 out of my checking and put it over into savings. That's considered automatic savings. Now, what is the point of saving? Now, I don't know if any of you know Susie Orman. I used to watch her back in the day, and I used to buy her books back in the day. She's sometimes on PBS. She used to be on one of the regular channels, but she really believes in these three kinds of approaches to having savings. The first thing you want is an emergency fund. And an emergency fund in the old days, they would say you should have at least 6 months to a year's income. That may be a bit of a stretch. Depends on the kind of job you have, depends on the kind of industry that you're in. Because in some cases, you know, if you have, let's say, a union job where you have a sort of guarantee of a contract, then, you know, you may be okay with just a 6 months. If you have a non-unionized job, and so many of the jobs now are non-unionized, you may want to try to have more of a savings in case of emergency. And the emergency, of course, is if you're fired, right? Now, if you're in a very stable situation where you know that your job is stable, where the future looks very strong, then a shorter window is okay, maybe a 3 month to 6 months. So that's number A for savings. The second kind of reason you want to save, although most of us don't do this anymore because we buy on credit, and there's a place for credit, believe you me, midterm savings for travel, for vacations, for purchasing a car, or for large household items. You know, very often you might want to redo your kitchen and you want a nice new refrigerator, or you want to outfit your whole kitchen with a refrigerator, a stove, etc., whatever the latest. Yes, you can certainly purchase on credit, and there's nothing wrong with that if you have good credit and you have, but if you set the goal also of saving towards it, it will reduce the amount of credit you have to pay. And of course, the big dream for many of us is to purchase our own home, or maybe our own condo, our own co-op, our own vacation home, or our own retirement home. Sometimes that's what we look forward to. And then in other cases, some of you may be saving towards helping with children's college tuition, or your grandchildren's college tuition, or other members of your family. Again, I said I don't have any children, but I have sent a couple of children in my family to college, supported, not fully. You know, I told them the parents have to do their part, but I also have helped. And then, of course, saving for retirement to supplement if you are fortunate enough to have a pension, a fixed pension, or of course, if you've contributed to Social Security, you'll have that, but you may also want to save so that you can sort of pump up and complement your Social Security. So those are the three kind of goals that you want. Your short term for emergency, your midterm for purchasing, you know, big items. I can tell you one of my big items when I was young was a mink coat. Okay. So I saved for my mink coat. Okay. I had a car at that time. I had a home, so I figured I could buy myself a mink. I saved towards my mink coat and I bought, what can I tell you? It happens. But the big thing is to try to the best of your ability to develop that habit of savings automatically. Now, some of you on the line are probably from the Caribbean or Jamaica or other places like that, and you know about the good old-fashioned partner.
Susu.
Susu, exactly. And you know, it's amazing. Some people think it's a pyramid scheme. It's not a pyramid scheme. I had not belonged to a partner for many years. My sister belongs to one. It's a family thing. It's a family that we know well. And over the last 3 or 4 years, I decided to go in. And I went in and I try to, I always ask for mine either before I take a vacation or maybe recently, because I haven't been able to take a vacation, I ask for it when my taxes on my house is due. And I usually get my partner at that time, and it pays half of my taxes. So again, you can save in different ways. There's no one way to do it. But you have a requirement if you join a partner, you've got to see it to the end. You can't just pay in, collect yours, and then move out. It's a commitment. So that's item number 3. Item number 4, let's look at long-term savings. As I mentioned, the 401(3) and the 401, the IRA, and the 403 is something, I can't seem to move this so that you can see the whole thing. Let's see. I'm not going to try to move it because I may mess it up. But the whole idea with joining into a tax deferred, whether it's your IRA or 401, is the idea that you're putting in, let's say, 2% of your income every month. But you're putting that in for the long haul, over 30 years, let's say. And the important thing also is that when you do that, you're investing it into the stock market. You'll have to figure out how you wish to invest it. And it has what they call the power of compounding. I really want to highly recommend for the people on the audience, because I see folks are of different ages, and I suspect some of you have children who are maybe going to be going to college or maybe even grandchildren. Long-term savings in a 529 account is one of the best things you can do for your children or your grandchildren or other members of your family. The 529 account, the New York State 529 account, allows me as an individual to put away as much of, if I can afford it, $5,000 into a specific kind of fund that is invested in the stock market. And you put that away every year. It's a deduction on your taxes. And then it accumulates over time. And when the child hits 18 or 19 and is ready to go to college, the money goes to that child without taxes, or goes to the college tuition. If the child does not go to college, the money is there. It is your money. You can use it. The only thing is, at that time, after 18 years or 15 years or 11 years, you then have to pay the taxes. Because if it is not used for college tuition, if it's used for something else, then you have to pay the taxes. So that is something that I really highly recommend to individuals who may, and one of the things I suggest to people is, you're always buying your kids stuff. You buy them birthday gifts, you buy them Christmas gifts, you buy them stuff, right? And if you take 50% of the money you spend on gifts and sock that away long term in the New York State 529, you'd be surprised to see how much that can accumulate for the future. I just have a chart here. It's not a good, you can't see it very well because I see that the fine print is not so good, but there's an account that was started in 2009 for a child, and the investment was about $5,000 every year for 2009, on which that individual got a deduction on their taxes. And the account is now valued at $86,000, $86,507. the principal amount that you put in, that person put in was 55,000, and the earnings, the interest in the market was 31,000. So you see how powerful it can be if invested in the right way, in a 529 fund. You're earning, it almost not quite doubled, but it's sort of at least 1.5 times what was put in. So the college savings fund, I can't say enough about it. Not every state has it, but New York State does. And I think that's a very, very important thing to do. Now, if by chance you happen to, put away funding in any of these kinds of accounts, one of the things I discovered from talking to some of my friends is that they don't open their statements when they come every month. Oh, it comes and they just sit it down. And especially, they don't open the statements when the market is not doing well. They just turn a blind eye. They just let it sit there. Well, you can't do that. If you have made a commitment to, invest, put away some money, you gotta face the reality. What is it doing? So one of the things I suggest is any kind of savings, any kind of review. Just like at the beginning, I said, ladies, you gotta take a look at your inventory. You gotta see what's coming in and what's going out, and you gotta put it down on paper. Similarly, when you're saving, whether it's in a savings account in the bank or whether you're saving, let's say you're saving in a college savings account or in your tax deferred, you've got to take a look at it. You've got to see it at least once a quarter. Doesn't have to be every month, but take a look, see what's going on, educate yourself, read between the lines, ask some questions, okay? Yes, it's true, the stock market goes up and goes down. Like today, the stock market was down 600 points. And some people are saying, oh, I've got to cash in my stocks. No, that's not the time to do it. But take a look. Develop the muscle strength, just like you would if you were doing some exercise. Every quarter, take a look at it. And then at the end of the year, possibly, you make the adjustments. And of course, you've got to educate yourself. Sometimes you won't know what you're supposed to do. So you do have to look around for experts. But don't just pick any old expert. Interview those experts and let them earn your trust. Maybe you have a friend who has someone and you can check them out. Or maybe you have a daughter or a son who has someone and you can check them out. So get the help of experts and educate yourself. Item 6, solicit and get good financial advice or help. Some of us don't like to discuss this stuff with our family and friends because we think it's private. Oh, I'm too private for that. Well, I don't believe in that. I discuss it with my family and my friends, and we've been very helpful to each other, especially my friends, I must say, especially in the early days. Sometimes even at work, I've learned some things because sometimes there are people who may be older than me, especially when I was starting out, and they had a little bit more experience than I did. And, we may talk about things and you pick up some ideas. Of course, yes, it's important to get a good financial advisor, and sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. But again, a little bit of trial and error, trial and error. You try, and you won't have the same people over time. Read some books. Susie Orman is a good start. But I say, do not be slavish to any one person or any one approach. Diversify. That's really, really important. Over my lifetime, I have had various people who have been part of my financial posse. In my early life, these were two of my colleagues that I met at Queensborough. In fact, this lady hired me. She gave me my first job. And over our whole lifetime, we would be discussing this. Unfortunately, this lady has passed on and this lady has dementia, but we used to share ideas in our early careers. You know, we would do professional things also. We wrote books together, we did things together, we socialized, and we also talked. And this friend, my friend Yvonne, and this is her sister, she and I were always talking about this. And she had a husband, but she would always come to me and we would talk on the phone and we would say, what are you doing with XYZ? How are you handling ABC? And there was even a time when she was buying a house and she had to sell a house and then buy a house, but she didn't sell her house yet when she was buying, and she needed a person to give as a kind of security. And she said to me, could you help me? I only need it for about 30 days, but they will go through, they'll take a look at your track record and they'll give me a bridge loan. And I was able, because she was my very good friend and we had always kind of talked about our own situations, I was able to, get her a bridge loan for 30 days. And then within 30 days, she had what she needed and she didn't need me anymore on that score. This lady is also part of my financial posse. She's my Haitian friend who, she is one of the best savers I have ever known. I've known her now for about 30 years, and I have become a much better saver since I've known her, because she used to embarrass me by letting me feel as if, she didn't do it intentionally, of course. She would be fixing something in her house and she says, oh, Marcia, I gotta go to the bank and find $10,000 because I'm not taking any credit. And I said, where do you get this money? She says, I saved. I put X amount away, and when I have a big thing, I just go and I spend and I don't use credit. This lady has taught me a lot, and for 30 years, I said, I'm going to be like her, and so I have become a much better saver. And then, of course, there are different people who are officially in the business. I don't know if some of you are old enough to know First Investors. That was one of my first stock accounts. I can't remember the guy's name now. Then I had Loxley Smith for about 20 years, and I had a lady named Jennifer Edwards. She was with Smith Barney. And now I have a team from Morgan Stanley and, of course, TIAA. The idea is not that you have to be loyal to one person, because sometimes your needs change. And sometimes, just like any other work person that you work with or work for or who works for you, you have to diversify. You have to go out and shop around and see what else is out there. And then sometimes it's not so easy to break off some of these relationships. But for the good of your money, you may have to do that. Now, this one is something that nobody likes to talk about. Because first of all, they say, I don't have an estate, so I can't do any estate planning. Well, that's not true. Because if you've lived long enough, you have a few things. There may not be a big estate, but there's something. I know it's scary as women, as people, to think about the fact that you're going to pass on. But I learned this particular thing from how my father passed away. He died suddenly about 2 weeks before his 70th birthday. We were going to be having a big birthday party in Jamaica. Everybody was coming, and he died about 2 weeks before that. He had been out with his wife and some people visiting from England. They had come home. They went to see a play, etc., etc. He went to bed. He didn't wake up. We all went down to Jamaica. Everybody is sad and da-da-da. We were able to put him to rest. However, we had the most detailed instructions that my father had left in a safe that was in his home, what he wanted for his funeral, who he wanted to speak, no flowers, what kind of casket. He wanted a mahogany, a maho, a Jamaican maho. And when you looked at his will, everything in detail, and everybody was taken care of, and everybody's name was on a whatever. The point is, my father and my mother were divorced, so my mother was not in the picture. He did have a second wife, a stepmother, but his children were all taken care of, as was his wife. Very clearly delineated. You wouldn't know how comforting that was. So when my father died, I was about 38. I came back to New York, and within 2 years, I made my first will. Of course, I've made about 3 or 4 since that time. So don't be scared by the fact, but do approach it, with a deliberation and intentionality. Make sure you have designated beneficiaries on your accounts. Make sure you have a well-executed will. Use an attorney. Make sure you have a power of attorney. You don't know when you may get sick and you may not be able to handle your own affairs. You need somebody to, put 2 people as a power of attorney. Prepare a well-executed healthcare proxy so people know what you want to do. Do you want to be kept, on extraordinary, etc. And during the pandemic, as you know, with the way things have been, this kind of thing is important. Write a letter to your family regarding your funeral arrangements and the distribution of your personal effects. Maybe you have some things that you want to go to a particular person. Make it clear, write it down, document it. This is a new one because we are now living in a world of technology, list of passwords for your cell, your computer, your accounts, your safety deposit box, and that sort of thing. So do some estate planning. Don't be scared of it. As a matter of fact, it's very freeing. Share your knowledge. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing now. I've been doing this for at least 40 years locally, with my friends, with my family, with my posse, as I told you. And I've even shared my knowledge with my former boss. I worked at Bronx Community College. I had a lovely woman, Carolyn Williams, who was my boss. She was from Detroit, and she had lived in Detroit and in LA. And, she was coming to New York, and, here we are, us New York hipsters. And she didn't know much about the pension system. So she would always ask me, and I gave her advice. And then one day she came to me, she says, Marcia, did I take my Social Security? She was at that age. So I said, Carolyn, are you eligible to take your Social Security? And she said, yes. I said, so why wouldn't you take it? It's yours. You've made the age. Da, 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 da. Take your Social Security. And so she did. She says, well, I have to pay taxes on it. I said, yes, you do. But do you want to have the money? Or do you want to leave it with Social Security until you hit a later age? Who knows? You may not make that age. Take your Social Security. She was at 66, so that's why I advised her. And then I continued to mentor today. This is a young woman named Marveline Basalius. And she and I, she was my mentee at York, wonderful young woman. So when I knew I was going to be doing this presentation, I asked her if she would send me a testimonial. So here's what she said. She says, hello, my name is Marveline. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. I have been so for 6 years, about as long as I graduated from York College. I have been the beneficiary of Dr. Keyes's mentorship for over 6 years now. With her support and guidance, I have been able to learn important keys to promoting a healthy financial management lifestyle. One of the key tips that I've learned was to engage in a TDA, which my job offered. Once I learned that this was offered by my current employment, I did just. Some of my coworkers were also encouraged to do the same, with a 50-50 arrangement of 7% allocated regularly. I had been able to accumulate over $20,000 within the past 6 years working, in addition to pension funds for retirement. Another great piece of advice that I have benefited from receiving was to save at least 10% of my earnings automatically if possible. This is a great way to have extra money for emergencies if needed. The financial stewardship allows me to not only have a strong foundation for myself, but the ability to impact others as well. I was able to donate $1,000 to a student in need at my alma mater. I was able to contribute to Compassionate International via sponsorships, as well as contribute to various church ministry causes. Such outcomes where I can pour into the lives of others with financial support are among my most rewarding. So that's what my friend and mentee, Marveline, said. And so I say to you, ladies and gentlemen who have allowed me to speak to you today, it's never too late. Don't delay. Share this with your children and grandchildren. Check in with your posse and your advisors. And like the Nike ad says, just do it. Thank you so much for having me with you. And I would like to end my talk with a quote from Marie Evans. And of course, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. So this poem is by Marie Evans. She was born in 1923 in Toledo, Ohio. These are both Midwesterners, and died in 2007. It's a very nice little poem, kind of cute poem. It says, "Dear, the box is full." The box is the refrigerator, right? "Take whatever you like to eat." This is between a helper and her mistress, as it were. "An egg or soup, there ain't no meat. There's endive there and cottage cheese. If only I had some black-eyed peas. There's sardines on the shelves and such, but don't get my anchovies, they cost too much." Me get the anchovies indeed. What she think? She got a bird to feed? There's plenty in there to fill you up. Yes, ma'am, just the sights enough. Hope I live till I get home. I'm tired of eating what they eat in Rome. That's Marie Evans. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if time allows. If not, thank you once again for inviting me to be your guest speaker.
We can, let's give Dr. Keys a hand. Dr. Keys, thank you so much for this presentation and the invaluable information that you have given us. Wow, this is a lot to take in all at once, but hopefully we have each learned something that we can take away from this. It's a lot to take in, but it's all very important. So ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions for Dr. Keys? You can ask your questions now. Okay, Dr. Keys, the 529, that's something that I need to learn more about. I've heard about it, never really explored it,
Yes.
but it's something that, if you could just explain that one more time.
Sure. Yes, I will.
About the
I most
529.
certainly will. Let's see now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Here's the way it works. First of all, it's a New York State college fund, right? And the way it works, and there's a website, and by the way, I can walk you through this if you like, offline. You can go online or you can call them up and ask them to send you an application. basically what you do is you have some choices. You can invest, you can put into that. Let's say you wanted to put in $200 a month into that account, right? That's what you could afford. You need to put your grandchild's name, I imagine, because that person will be the beneficiary. You're the owner as of now. You also have to put their social security number. And then you make the contribution into it, let's say on a monthly basis. The second thing you have to do, you have to choose the way you want it invested. They have it ranging. You have different approaches. The approach that I recommend is that you put it in what is called the aggressive age-based option. What that means is that, let's say your grandchild is 2. How do you have a grandchild that you're thinking of putting it in for? Okay, I can't hear you. I'm not. Okay, let's say your grandchild is 6. Let's just say your grandchild is 6.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And you decided that you wanted to put it in. So you put it in and you say aggressive age-based. What happens is they put it in a pool of money, they invest it in such a way, and every time the age gets to a certain point, like at age 11, they make an adjustment. Then at age 13, they make another kind of adjustment. And then as the child gets older, and is closer to getting the money, needing the money, it becomes invested in a more conservative approach. And so the money is there at age 18 for when you need to pay college tuition. But if you like, Joan, I could find the forms for you and I could show you how to get it on the internet if you like. I could walk you through that process. I recommend it highly.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
And as I said, whatever you put in, if you file taxes individually, you can put in as much as $5,000, and $5,000 will be a tax deduction on your taxes. If you put in 2,000, then it will be a tax deduction of 2,000. If you're a couple, then it's 10,000. But if it's a single person, it's 5,000.
So much. Thank you.
Okay.
There's 2 people on the chat that will ask a question. We have Theodore James. Mr. James.
Yes.
I don't see him there now.
Yeah.
Theodore James.
Okay, can you go to the next one, Alfredo, please?
Ms. Lisa Hayes.
Good evening. Thank you, Alfredo. So I do have a question. I was wondering about the 529. If you are an adult and you want to go back to school, maybe for a master's or a doctorate or some kind of education, are you allowed to say for yourself regarding the 529?
This is a very good question, and I don't know the answer. That's
Okay.
but I can find out. I don't think so, though. But I could find out for you. It's usually meant for younger people. It's because it's really meant as a tax deduction to you to benefit somebody else. Is that Lisa?
Yes.
Lisa, I will check it out some more. But if you want further advice about getting, doing a master's and how to finance it, I might be able to help you with that too.
Yeah, the second one now, because these student loans are piling up, man. So,
Yeah,
ma'am,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I know. Well, okay, I understand. Yes. And what kind of master's are you thinking of doing?
I would probably be getting a master's in education.
Okay, in education. And you're going to teach then?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my question is, can you get a job as a teacher now and then maybe get some tuition reimbursement?
So I'm working through the fellows program as we speak. So
Okay, good. Because
yeah.
the advice I would give is get a job as a teacher. And then I do know that they will give you some tuition reimbursement once you're teaching.
Yes.
Great. Okay, very good.
Thank you so much.
Very good luck with that.
Theodore James, you have your hand raised. Theodore.
Actually, that was an error. But in answer to the question, the 529 can only be used for a student.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you, Theodore.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Hello?
Anyone else on the chat? Anyone else?
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's Carl Stricker. How are you?
Hey, Carl.
Yeah, I just want to tell you, that was one of the best presentations I ever heard.
Wow, thank you.
Unbelievable. I'm so impressed.
Miss Keys,
Thank you, Carl. Thank you.
Carl's our land
You
use
see
chair.
you see my head getting big, right?
I want to tell you something. Your head deserves to be big. Every point that you mentioned is the truth.
Okay,
I
thank you.
can't find one fault with anything you discussed. And I've been in financial stuff for a long, long time. And all I can say is that, you know, when young people want to invest in the stock market, they should do the same thing as you recommended in the 529. Very aggressive in the beginning, and as you get older, be more conservative.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thanks to the person who had the answer on the 529 also. Was that you, Ted? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, Dr. Keys, it's hard to say just thank you because
Hello?
you've done such a marvelous job. Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody
Someone
wants to speak? Oh, Mr. Reed, Anthony Reed.
Yes, doctor, thank you so much for that wealth of information. Is there any way I can get your information so you could probably do like a presentation on another organization that I've been involved with?
Sure. Speak to either Miss Claude or Miss Sadie Campbell. They are my agents.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love your energy. I love your motivation. And thank you so much for your essential work. Because right now it's essential work because people are really like struggling. You know, God bless you for just having that energy and that full force that you have. I pray your strength every day, and thank you so much for that information.
Appreciate it. Very much appreciate it.
Mr. Reed, we are agents with a fee, okay?
Right, and the fee goes back to community board.
That's right.
Right. That's right.
Any other questions? Well, we'll move on. So, Dr. Keys, we salute you, Woman of the Month.
Thanks a lot.
Woman of the Month.
Okay.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Lisa, I think Lisa has another question.
No, she was just clapping, I
It was
think.
just clapping.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
okay. Thank you. Well, now we'll move on to members of the committee who will tell us about their choice of the woman of choice for this month, celebrating Women's History Month.
Okay, this is Sadie again, and Dr. Keys. I'm very pleased. Was very pleased with that presentation. Thank you again.
Thanks, Sadie. Thank you.
And I will be calling you because I need to hear some more things.
Okay, sure. Okay. You certainly know how to reach me.
Yes, I certainly do know how to. Okay. This evening I just wanted to talk a little bit about someone by the name of Fannie Lou Hamer. And I'm really impressed with her and the things that she did, you know, as a woman. And she was born, I'll read a little bit about her. And excuse me, I'm a kind of little bit hoarse tonight for some reason. Hamer was born on October 6, 1917 in Montgomery County in Mississippi. And she was the 20th and last child of a sharecropper, Lou Eller and James Townsend. She grew up in poverty And at the age of 6, she joined her family picking what we know, cotton, all right? And by age 12, she left school to work. And in 1944, she married Harry Hamer, and the couple toiled in Mississippi plantation owned by slave master. His name was Marlowe, and they worked until 1962. Because Miss Hamer was the only worker who could read and write, she also served as the plantation timekeeper. In 1961, she received an hysterectomy by a white doctor without her consent. While undergoing surgery, he removed a uterine tumor. And this was what they call then forced sterilization. And that happened to Black women during that time period. It happened to the Black population. And this was widespread, and it was called Mississippi appendectomy. So that meant she was unable to have children after that. That summer, Miss Hamer attended a meeting led by civil rights activist James Foreman of the Students for the Nonviolent Coordination. That's the SNCC as we know it, and James Bevel of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She was so incensed that they were denied the right to vote. She became a member of that organization, and in August 31, 1962, she led 17 volunteers to register to vote, to lead people and signed up people to register to vote at the Indiana, Mississippi courthouse. And they were denied the right to vote, it is said, due to an unfair literacy test. And the group was so harassed on their way home from that courthouse when police stopped their bus and fined them $100 and the trumped up charge was that their bus was too yellow. That night, Marlowe fired her boss now that she was working for at that time. He fired her because she attempted to sign up people to vote. But he kept her husband who worked on that same plantation. And whatever property she had, they confiscated that property. In 1963, after successfully completing a voter registration program in Charleston, South Carolina, Miss Hamer and several other Black women were arrested for sitting in a whites-only bus station restaurant in Winona, Mississippi. And while in the jailhouse, she and several other of the women were brutally beaten, leaving Hamer with lifelong injuries from a blood clot in her eye, kidney damage, and leg damage. In 1964, Miss Hamer's national reputation soared, and she co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. And she challenged the local Democratic Party efforts to block Black participation. Hamer and other members of her group went to the Democratic National Convention that year, and they argued to be recognized as an official delegation. And we're talking about in 1964 then. And she spoke before the Credentials Committee, calling for mandatory integrated state delegation. President Lyndon Johnson held a televised press conference, so she would not get any television airtime. But her speech was so great, and the description of racial prejudice in the South, that it was televised later. That by 1968, Ms. Hamer's vision for racial parity in delegations had become a reality, and Hamer was a member of the Mississippi First Integrated Delegation. In 1964 also, She helped to organize that Freedom Summer, which brought hundreds of college students, black and white, to help with the African American voter registration in the segregated South. Still in 1964, she announced her candidacy for the Mississippi House of Representatives, but was barred from that ballot. A year later, however, Amer and Victoria Gray, Annie Devine, became the first Black woman to stand in the U.S. Congress when they unsuccessfully protested the Mississippi House delegation. She also traveled extensively, it was said, and she gave many powerful speeches. But she was really frustrated with the political process. So Miss Amer turned to economics as a strategy for greater racial equality. In 1968, she began what they call a pig bank to provide pigs for Black farmers to breed, raise, and slaughter. A year later, she launched the Freedom Farm Cooperative, buying up lands that Blacks could own and farm collectively. With the assistance of donors, including the famous singer Harry Belafonte, she purchased 640 acres and launched a co-op store, a boutique, and a sewing enterprise. She single-handedly ensured that 200 units of low-income housing were built. Many still exist in Ruleville today. The FFC lasted until the mid-1970s, and in its heyday, it was among the largest employers in the South County, in the South Flower County. She traveled extensively doing fundraising, and Miss Amer passed away in 1977. She was only 59 years old. So I was really impressed with that, because from those humble beginnings, she did so much, and died at such a young age. So there's lots more about her, but that's the part that I was really impressed with that pig farm, the pig bank, as they call it. Never heard, first time I heard of it, and I said, that was amazing. So that's my the person that I chose this month.
Thank you, Ms. Sadie. And it's a shame that today we're still talking about voter registration. We're still having trouble with voter registration so many years later.
Right.
Hopefully someday things will get better. Is there any other committee member? The member who would like to present their woman of choice? Okay, well, hearing none, we'll go on to our next item on the program, where we will pay homage, we will honor Carmen Ortiz, who is our past president. No, sorry. Past secretary.
Secretary.
Yes, secretary, correspondent secretary. Some time ago, 25 years ago, Ms. Carmen Ana Ortiz witnessed picketing demonstration on the street, and she was curious. Then she realized that it was members of Community Board 12 who were demonstrating against the building of a motel, which was right across the street from where her church was, and also right around the corner from where her children went to school. She realized then that it was Father Gorman, who was the past chairman of the board, and also Carmen Rosa, who was the district manager. She noticed that demonstration. She was quite interested. So thereafter, she decided to attend the community board meetings, and she signed up to be a member of the board. 20 years later, Carmen became the corresponding secretary of Community Board 12. And that's where her activism started. After that, she was able to demonstrate against what was going on her block and on the street in her neighborhood, where they had the block association. Before joining the board, Ms. Ortiz worked as a radiology technologist at Montefiore. She was a delegate to health workers. She also became, after she retired, she started to work feverishly in her church, where she did a lot of religious services, visiting the sick at home and in the nursing home for Christian services. There are other services that she was involved with for her faith. She has done numerous things, but it's just too much to read at this time. But we know that we know her at Community Board to be a very hard-working person, a woman of strength and character. And most of us can attest to her losing her child, her daughter, during this pandemic. And with all of that, she was able to come to meetings and do what she has to do. And we recommend her and we honor her today as one of the women with so much strength, dedication, wisdom, and resilience. Carmen, we salute you. We appreciate you. And we just want to say thank you for your services at Community Board 12. And congratulations. Later on, when we can meet, you will have your plaque from the Libraries and Cultural Affairs Committee. Happy Women's History Month, Carmen, and also happy Women's History Month to all the ladies on the
Yes, here. And to the men also. They have to,
and to the men, thank you all for participating. Thank you for being here.
yes.
We appreciate you all. Thanks so much. Dr. Keys,
Very good.
We thank you.
maybe you could come and give us a class, not just a presentation, but maybe we could have a class from you.
Well, and when we can talk about it, sure.
Sure, we'll talk about it.
We'll bring
Thank
her
you
back.
all.
Miss Ortiz,
Sure, sure.
give me a second, guys.
Our chairman of the board is here, Dr. Burke. Thank you, Dr. Burke, for being here.
Guys,
And all the others. I can't mention everyone by name, but thank you, Ms. Toline, Ms. Bennett, Mr. Theodore, Alfredo. Thank you so much for hosting this for us. Thank you.
Mr. Ortiz,
Being
can
at the
you hear us?
helm.
Carmen, can you hear us?
Yes, Carmen, can you hear us? Carmen?
Maybe she's muted. Is she muted?
I wanted to make sure she heard what we said. Carmen, can you hear us?
She's muted.
She said she was having problems. It was echoing.
Miss Toline, Mr. Reed, Carmen, Mr. Mike.
I tell you, she is having problems because she's on two screens. She gets
Oh,
off of one of the
okay.
screens, it wouldn't echo.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Mhm.
She,
Anyone else have anything to say?
I just want to say thank you for hosting this meeting. Thank you for inviting me. Very interesting, very informative. I'll make sure I come to more of your meetings. Dr. Keys, thank you for your knowledge. Amazing what you mentioned. Just the little things that you think you know that you don't know. But I took pictures of the items you were putting up on your screen. I'm definitely going to look into a couple of those items. And just everyone else on the chat, thanks for coming to the Libraries and Cultural Affairs Committee meeting. Thank you, guys.
To everyone, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great.
No one has anything else to say?
I think
Mr.
Then we'll
Chairman,
call.
I think Dr. Burke and Lisa Hayes have their hands up.
Dr. Burke,
Alfredo, I'll make closing remarks. So when everybody's done, I'll just close it out, and then have Mrs. Clyde close out her meeting.
Ms.
So if
Hayes,
anybody else has anything, you can have them go.
Ms. Hayes.
Okay, Miss
Yeah.
Hayes.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to say, Ms. Ortiz, we really appreciate you. I don't know if you were able, you are seeing the chat, but I will just say it out loud. You bring such a peace and grace to the board, and we definitely appreciate it. I know you literally go down in prayer, and so we thank you for that, and congratulations again. Thank you.
Alfredo, all I gotta say is nobody deserves it more than Miss Ortiz.
Of course.
yeah. I'm sorry she can't hear. She's not.
So Carmen, are you able to hear us? No.
She's still not. No, she's still not here. Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Burke, it's your turn.
I'll just close by saying this. I know that we think about Miss Ortiz, and as you know, I didn't chair the last meeting, so Miss Ortiz, I would have said this. Losing a child of any sort has got to be painful. So it's just to let you know that this love that we're sending to you is not just because of that, because you are a fantastic woman, but that we are here for you. And I think that's the one thing that we are as a family. You hear, Tolene say this all the time, that we're a family, and that's true. So congratulations on your award, first and foremost. And, again, is anything that, we can do as a board, outside of this to assist you, just let us know. Ms. Claude, I'm not surprised at the work that your team puts on, because you guys always put on good programming. And quite frankly, of all the committees, I always enjoy coming to this particular committee's meeting, because I know that I'm going to learn something new. And I think the one thing that I tell people is that as I walked out my PhD a number of years ago, one of my committee members said, always strive to gain knowledge, and it's okay to say that you don't know something. So the fact that knowledge is an everlasting process, and that you and your committee, via whether it be a guest speaker or the topics, is always knowledgeable. So to that end, I just want to say thank you. As I said in my note yesterday, get prepared, because we may get to see you in person. That's all I'm going to say for now, until we know something more definitive. That's just what, as of last week, I think last week, Wednesday, that's what the word is. So is it set in stone yet? Not yet, but the directive is start getting ready. So I just want to, put that out there, and we could talk about it a little bit later on. And on that note, I'm done, Mrs. Claus. So thank you for letting me, close things out.
Alfredo has something to say.
I have Carmen. Are you on?
Yes.
Yeah, she can't hear us, but I called her, so she want. Go ahead, Carmen, speak.
I want to take this opportunity for this honor that you have given me
I was, it's very touching. I know what's going on with my computer. Like if you're in a mountain, someone is speaking, go back and you hear the same person speaking over the other. That's what's happening with my computer. I really honor that I just received. Never, well, I've done a few honors, but you know, this one was very touching. Thank you so much. Well,
Thank you, Carmen.
okay.
All right, so she just basically wanted to say thank you to everybody. That she's having difficulties with her system, but she's honored, and you know, she just want to say thank you and God bless to everybody.
Okay.
I thank
told
all
you.
of you.
Mhm.
I thank you all for being here, for participating, for listening. Thank you all so much. All the other members from different committees. This is family time. And we're all here to learn something. And if we can each take away at least 1 point, it would have been worthwhile. Thank you so much to everyone. Now I would like to have someone make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you so much for the great work that you do.
Anthony, so moved. Mhm.
I don't think anyone wants to go. We can hang out here. We can learn more. But I think Dr. Keys is tired. She said a lot.
Yes.
I doubt very much if Dr. Keys gets tired.
Oh, really? Yeah. I see.
But we can hang out here.
No, you have a motion on the floor, Ms. Todd.
Yes, we have
Sadie
the
made a
I
motion.
know, but no one is making the motion.
No, you have a motion on the floor. Miss Sadie moved.
Yes, so
You
I'm so moved. I know I'm a little hoarse tonight, but so moved.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Well, you need a second.
Thank you.
Second, who's going to second for us?
Do we really need a second?
Yes.
No, you know what, you do, but that's okay. Go
Yes,
ahead.
okay.
Miss
Second, I second it.
Okay, second.
Yes, okay.
Do we need to start again, go over this?
No, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Everybody, please be safe.
Thank you. Get home
Blessings.
safely, please.
Yeah.
Get home safely.
And
Travel
you mean
safe.
go up the stairs to your bedroom?
I need